think I just shared this out.
Cool.
I'm gonna verify.
Well, Esquire, did you want to do an intro for me?
I do. I'm almost there.
Sweet.
I'm not quite there
What a quiet room.
yet. I talk all day, man. It's up to you guys. You gotta make it happen. If it's any consolation, dry January ends for me in a little bit. I
That's sad.
can't go have drinks with C3 advisors like I intended to because something came up. But I was kind of stoked about going to the fair and then going to the auto show. But the next time we meet here, the Grand Rapids Community College Fountain Hill Brewery will be open downstairs.
Oh, sweet.
So that's where I'll be before the meeting. And maybe during parts of it. But depending on how it all goes. All right, just about there. Stay on target. There you go, the live stream is on.
I love this laptop, but the keyboard and chassis is very. It's apparent what keys I use the most on this laptop.
All right. Do I have the camera or do you? It's probably following one of us at this point.
I think it's a room cam, right? So
Yep.
I think it's right there.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming out here to MySec tonight. I'm so glad to see so many of you that came out, and I'm really excited to hear everything that Richard has to teach us about practical red team automation. Richard's been a very integral member of MySec, and he's very active in a lot of things that we do. He's given a few other talks, and I'm always very excited about the information that he has to bring. He has a lot of practical application stuff that he always brings to these meetings. So with that, Richard?
Thank you, Esquire. Good evening, everybody. Today we're going to talk about practical red team automation, how to do it, and why you should. It is MISEC GR, January 2023. No malarkey today. A little bit about who I am. My name is Richard Malloy II. I am, in fact, a senior security consultant and ethical hacker here at Open Systems Technologies, OST, a local organization, full-featured bar. I'm not here to talk about work, though, but I will tell you almost everything that I do talk about today, I use at work and is inspired by work. However, I will share various scripts and files that were developed independent of OST, and that GitHub repo will be fully open for you guys to download and take a look at. I do need to add that to the presentation at the very end, though, unfortunately. I have more than 6 years experience doing InfoSec hands-on. You can find me at maloli.me. You can find me on Mastodon at infosec.exchange. I like steak and rye whiskey, personally. And there is my Pitbull Coda. So we're going to start with the fucking demo, because that's what we're here for, right? To see how this stuff works. All right. So I'm going to switch over to, what I have going on here. Because you didn't come here to hear me talk, right? You wanted to see code in action, right? Sweet. So this is going to build an entirely fresh VM. It's going to do some cool customizations to it. Then it's going to wrap it all up into a nice little OVF file for us to import later on.
Where did you get the JSON for that one?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. We're going to talk about the tools today while that builds in the background. Because you don't really want to watch an entire terminal just sitting there for half an hour. You want to actually hear somebody talk about what the heck I'm doing and why, right? So today we're going to talk about a few different tools. We're going to talk about Packer from HashiCorp. We're going to talk about VirtualBox from one rich asshole called Larry Ellison, Oracle. We're going to go through some template files that I've built out for us, talk about scripts that I've developed for this and that you should also utilize in your own practice, and then the various files that make this all work. All right? Packer. Packer is a really cool utility. So today I'm going to demo it on VirtualBox, but you can use this to build images for VirtualBox, VMware, Azure, Google Compute, almost anything it has the ability to talk to. So we use this to automate and provision items within a VM. So this does everything from it creates the VM, starts it running, mounts a CD or ISO image, sends commands to it. So if you've ever done an automated install of an OS, right, Linux or Windows, you know you have to interrupt the process, you have to feed it an unattend file or a pre-seed file, or you can sit there and just type the commands itself, right? Packer does that all for you. You give it the commands in a file, in a JSON template, and it does what you tell it to do. It is that cool. I can literally sit here, press enter, 45 minutes later, I'll have a brand new Kali VM ready to go, or a Windows 10 attack VM, or a Windows 10 victim, whatever you want. You can configure it that way. The beautiful thing about doing it this way, though, is what you end up with, or what you create, is both computer and human readable code. That's what we want. You may have heard something called infrastructure as code. This is the same thing. This is what you want to be able to mature to. The idea is you write it, you modify it, you build it as teams, you distribute it to your teams, right? You have one standard of truth, one source of truth, and you know that what gets built is what got built because of the code. You know exactly what went into it. So on the screen, you'll see a little bit of a screenshot here of the finishing step where the VirtualBox ISO gets created. Really, it's a VDI file and OVF file. And then you'll see a little bit about the file structure here. So under the file structure here, we have our main folder. Whoops. We have a Packer folder. Come on, stop clicking. Underneath the Packer folder, we've got files. So in the files, you've got the AutoNTend, that's for a Windows 10 build. The Kali README is just a little README file that gets put onto the Kali VM for us. Preseed file, that's the Debian preseed file for Kali, because Kali is based on Debian. Under output VirtualBox ISO, that's where you're going to find, for example, our output files. Then under scripts, you'll see a whole bunch of various scripts that I've built to make this thing work. So you've got a cleanup script that just cleans up the temporary files. You've got a script that configures the user group so that we can actually mount VirtualBox, machine folders and all that. I've got a script that automatically gun zips the RockU word list that we're going to use later on, because we're going to do some hacking today, right? Naturally. I find that the default install of Kali doesn't have all the tools I want. So I want things like Ramina for remote desktop VNC access. It doesn't install things like ZA proxy, for example, by default. So I have that as a script. And I found this really cool tool that I want to demo today, if we have time, called Villain. If you haven't heard about it yet, stay tuned. It's going to be fun. Then you'll see some things here for Windows. So Windows, did you know that Windows 10 has OpenSSH built into it that you can turn on, and it actually works? So I have a script that turns that on so that when I build a VM, a Windows 10 VM with Packer, when it boots up, I can actually automate and provision scripts into it via SSH. And then also, obviously, installing the guest editions on Windows Box. Then you'll see that there are two JSON files in there. One is called Kali, one is called Win10. Those are just the template files that Packer uses to get it all done. So with that said, Here is the opening example of the JSON file for Kaylee. And you'll notice it is literally just all the basic keyboard commands that you would actually type in to launch an automated install. And everything that I'm showing you is well documented online. And again, I'm going to give you a GitHub repo at the end that you can download all this from. The next part of that same JSON file is some configuration information. So things like how long do you wait after the boot time before you start doing stuff? How big of a disk to get this guy? I'm giving it 80 gigs. That's just way too big. Other items like the VirtualBox graphics card. How big should that be, etc. And then also, where do I get the CD image, etc. Very, very basic stuff here. Moving on to it, now we get into, okay, well, now how do we configure the actual VM that we want, right? So I'm telling it, give it 2 gigs of memory, give it 2 CPUs. Of course, I want to copy and paste to it. No, I don't want remote desktop turned on for it, things of that nature. Then finally, we get into the provisioners. Provisioners is where the fun really starts. So the first part was laying down the base OS. Anybody can do that. The real fun is the provisioning part of it. Let's go ahead and actually run custom scripts and do fun stuff to make that VM ours so that our team can do the work. So I'm going to stick this Kaylee README file into the main home folder. I'm going to run this shell script to install Villain. It's kind of cool about that script file specifically because it basically just, git clones the repo. But you'll notice that a lot of these scripts run as sudo, but I want that folder, that repo to be as my user Kaylee, which if you run sudo against it, puts into the root folder. So you have to kind of figure out and understand the order of operations here to make everything work. You'll notice at the very end there, variables, password, and username, Kaylee. We're going to keep this really simple today. The password to our VM is Kaylee, okay? So we run more commands, right? We run more scripts. We're going to do the updates. We're going to install ZA proxy, Ramina, a few other things there. And then finally, we're going to do some cleanup, right? Again, this isn't very complex. Once you get a basic template working, at that point, it's just, what do you want to do today? Do you want to change the background image? Do you want to put down different custom files? In my practice, so I'm not going to show it to you today because what I'm going to talk about is IP. But my build process for work, for example, also includes installing Nessus automatically, restoring a backup of Nessus so that it's already licensed, all of our custom policies already in place, all of our advanced scan settings for performance already in place. The user that we want to use is already in place. Things like already installing our custom word lists are already in place. So if you can dream it, if you can write it in a shell script, you can make it happen with Packer. That's the beauty of it. Here's a few examples of the scripts I'm talking about. Again, real simple. I mean, all you're doing is, user mod. Okay, that's really not that complex. We're gonna go ahead and clone some repos. We're gonna gun zip some files. Not complex, but when you put it all together, it does become complex. A lot of moving parts to get to this point. So, VirtualBox. You might wonder, why are we using VirtualBox? It's free. It's free. It's free. It's also cross-platform, runs perfectly fine on Windows, Linux, Mac as well, I believe. Works great, and again, it's free. You don't actually have to license it. And anytime a rich person owns a company that makes a free product, and I don't have to pay for that product, even better, even better. The really nice thing about VirtualBox, if you don't know, is you can also manage it via the command line really, really easily. It just works. So a little bit about the workflow of what we're doing here. So with Packer and automation in general, you start with just writing code. Who writes code? Who's written shell scripts? Who does anything where you might commit it to Git? I should see more hands because we should all be doing that. If you're not doing that today, just do it. Just make your own project, open up a free GitHub, and just commit some code. I promise you, it's not daunting. It's not that daunting. And I come from an experience where I never thought I would ever develop even a simple script, and yet I live in VS Code all day. So write your code, write it some more, test as you go, commit it. Test locally. So I write code on my work laptop, which is a Windows 10 laptop. I test it there. I will put it up into the code repository. I'll go to my VM that I work from, which is a Linux VM. I'll download it. I'll test it again, just to be on the safe side. I write code on my Linux laptop. This is my personal laptop. I test it. I commit it. I run it someplace else to be on the safe side. I do recommend whatever language you're going to program in or code in, figure out some basic standards for it and follow those. You know, I try to give all my scripts some sort of a header that tells other users, hey, here's what it does, here's who made it, here's the license information, etc. Deploy your code. So your code goes from your local workstation up to a repository of some sort, whether that's GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab somewhere, whatever that might be within your organization or outside of it. That's where you deploy it to, right? Then your teams will download that code and use that code to do whatever they want to with it or whatever they need to with it. So the assumption that I'm going on, or at least the way I look at this and the way I'm going to explain this to you is, say that I am on a team of pen testers and I am an R&D person on that team. And I've researched and developed this code base and I've put it out there for my pen testers to download and run so that they can do their jobs. And then your team members locally will download that code, run that code, and then do their jobs. That's the whole point of this. But why? Why should we automate this stuff? Why should we use free open source automation tools to make our jobs better, to make our lives better? Because you end up with fully updated VMs. Who here opens up VMware or VirtualBox and mounts an ISO and installs an OS these days? Come on, don't lie to me. You do. You do. How do you know it's been updated for your next engagement? How do you know it was built the same way for your next engagement? How do you know that it has all the tools you need for your next engagement? Infrastructure as code, fully updated. As code, you can read it. You know what's going to get installed. By the way, if something fails in your scripts, Packer bombs out and you know about it. Quality control. Standardization. You want all your team members to run the same code, to do the same thing, to have the same workflow. Why? Because you want it to be consistent. No matter where you go, what the customer is, you want the same results. If you scan the same system at two customers, you want the same results. If the same vulnerability is there, you want it represented. How do you do that? You ensure everyone is running the same code base, the same tools, and doing the same workflow. Also, if you've been doing this for a while, you might have collected malicious software. By doing this clean, you know you don't have malicious software that you don't know about, because we all have malicious software. That's why we're in this game. But I think the most important thing about this whole process that I'm trying to work towards is you don't have previous customer data on your VMs or on your hard drive. I can't tell you how many times I've walked in a customer before I started this process and said, wait a minute, did I clear that folder appropriately before I started adding more scans to it? You don't want to question that. You don't want to go in front of the board of directors and show them some results for them to go, it's not our customer, that's not our company name, man. It's not the right domain. Been there, done that. Not good. Okay, so I've given you a way to make cool images with all of your code base and all your tools for your workflow. Do you distribute the images? Come on. Raise your hands, yes or no? Yes? No, raise your hands. No, you don't distribute images. It's an 80 gig file. What are we? Torrenters? Well, of course we are, but no, what's wrong with you? No, you don't give out images. Images get snapshotted, images get corrupted, images get old, images get full of customer data and malicious software. No, you don't give out images. Give out code. You give out the code so that people can build it. Speaking of building it, where are we at? Oh, it's still building. Hold on here. Let's see here. Yep, it's definitely doing the build process. All right. I timed it. It takes about 35 to 40 minutes on average. So I've shown you a little bit about automation with Packer. I think that's a core component, a core competency to doing pen testing as a larger team. But I think you can automate more, right? What do you think? Nmap-v-open-exclude-ports T9100-script SMBS OS discovery, comma, banner-o, capital X 192.168.1.0.xml, space 192.168.1.0/24. Okay, so I use Nmap every single day. Do you think I type that command for every single subnet that I scan? By the way, I will scan anywhere from 2 to 300 different subnets in a day. Or what if I had a little wrapper script, /subnets-scan that subnet? And what if there was an R&D person or R&D team in your organization that all they did all day was run and test various Nmap settings against a known subnet to identify the fastest way to get the best results of your scans every single time? And what if they wrapped that scan information into a Python script? And then they gave you that Python script. All you had to do is run the Python script against a subnet. That's a game changer right there, friends. You don't have to remember crazy commands. You don't have to, develop this yourself. There you go. Boom. And yes, that screenshot is that script, which I will give to you. 100% that I wrote for this. What about stats, statistics? We collect a whole bunch of data when we do our scans, right? Wouldn't it be cool to automate pulling out relevant information? Like what ports are open on the various hosts you just scanned? Wouldn't that be cool to see? Just real easy to know, oh, this host has VNC open? Oh man, let's go attack that host right now. I've got the right command to attack VNC. Automation allows us to parse information quickly. If you're not currently doing anything like this right now in your current work or personal life, you gotta get on board. It took me way too long to get to this point. So I'm telling you, I'm evangelizing this. Automate. If you do it more than once, if you do it twice, automate it. Make it a button. Make it a script. The goal is to replace people and processes with little shell scripts that never fail. Okay, well, I went through these slides a little bit too quickly.
So you said something a moment ago about if you're not doing this at your place of work, then you or your personal life.
Yes, Esquire.
And I immediately thought, okay, how many Alexas or Googles or Siris or those kinds of things are in people's homes at this point? Sometimes I scan my home to make sure that I've got the devices there that should be there, and there aren't other devices that shouldn't be turned on at different times. So just looking at the automation you had there, it made me think, I could use some more automation for when I scan my home, for separating out those types of devices from like my regular laptop.
Absolutely. So Esquire is talking about, asking a question about, doing that automated scanning. Then based on the scans, can you separate out what's a known device versus maybe an unknown device versus a special device? Absolutely. If you know what that device is, if you have a flat network, for example, That's easy based on MAC addresses, based on known IP addresses, based on based on your network. Maybe you're giving those IP addresses, reserves, reservations, etc. All right. So I hate to say this, but the install is taking a little bit longer than I expected, but that's okay. I have a backup here. We will make this work. Let's just go ahead and turn on our latest version of Kaylee that was built on Monday. So it can't be that different these days. So
Monday.com.
no, Monday this week.
Oh, okay.
So just to give you guys a little bit of background context here, on my laptop, I've got a VirtualBox host-only network, 192.168.30 configured. I've got a pfSense firewall on that network to give that network internet access via NAT. Maybe it'll work. I don't know how this network will interfere with it. Then, you know what? I'm going to trust that the networking people have it all under control. But if they don't, then...
doesn't work with the firewall.
But not my firewall, because my firewall works. On this network, I've got my Kaylee box, my pfSense box, and there might be a surprise or two on there, right? So let's just take a look at this, right? Okay, so yeah, we're on the 192.168.30 network there. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit more. Come on.
Yes, you, sir. Now you're on camera. Follow you.
All right. Okay, so here is one of our freshly built Kaylee VMs based on the code that I fed it, right? And you know it is because, hey, there's that Kaylee README that I was talking about. And we know that because if I go to my code over here, oh, there's that Kaylee README. And it says hello. So we know it's the same one. We know it's from the same code base, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just open up a new tab here. And this is the code I'm going to give you guys today. So let's just go ahead and do a quick summit scan of what we're doing here. So let's just summit scan. Let's make sure that the help message works. Cool, it does work. So it's saying that we got to feed it a dash S in the subnets. So, all right, cool. And we know we're on 168.30.auth.24. Let's just let that run real quick. Cool, it found some stuff. There's a host out there with a ton of ports open. Holy crap. Is that, I see 5900 on 30.11? Huh. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's VNC. So I don't know. Let's just try something here. So anybody used Hydra before? Yeah, Hydra is a brute forcer password cracker for services. So it's real cool. You can just kind of feed it this whole, call it Hydra, and VNC only takes a password, doesn't take a user. So we're just going to feed it a password file. So p password file / user share word lists rock you and VNC, and all right, let's just feed it the actual port there and just see if this works. Oh, hey. There's a password. What is that? So VNC viewer, let's say 30.11 900. Hey, does that say root? Well, that's kind of fun. It's kind of cool. Man, you could drop all sorts of stuff there, couldn't you? So I saw something really cool though on my Kaylee build. I saw something called Villain. What is that? So Villain is really cool. I saw a demo of this on YouTube a few weeks ago. Basically, it's a multi-user session backdoor program. So what you can do with this program is more than one pen tester on the same network can run Villain. They can connect to each other. And when one person pops a shell on a remote system, they can give that shell to a teammate to keep working on while they pop more shells. Now, since it's just me, I'm a loner today, I just wonder. Pretend we're in an organization and we're doing a pen test, and you might have a rubber ducky available or something similar, and you just notice that over the next cube, Susie keeps on walking away from her workstation. She doesn't lock it. Man, what could you do with something like that? Right? Oh, look at this. We have an unlocked Windows 10 workstation. My goodness. Well, Villain has a really cool thing that you can do with it. Let's go ahead and, I don't know, generate a backdoor payload. So we're going to go ahead and generate OS equals Windows, lhost equals, what is my IP address? 15. Oh man, that just kind of worked, didn't it? And let's go ahead and paste that code here real quick. And we'll just pop that into a, come on. Unlock Windows box here, right? Oh, come on.
So if you don't mind, while you're doing that, someone online had sent me a message directly who was watching this, and they said, when you started showing the ports and stuff, they're like, you should do some red team stuff against little ports. You should like pick some little ports and then like see what you can find. And then immediately you went into that and he's like asking me something. It was perfect timing.
That's awesome. Why won't you copy and paste?
You have to turn on the virtual boxing, especially.
You can check that out, right?
See, this is why you would load onto a rubber ducky. Hold on here. Come on.
Because it's not happening, but, I think it blocks Hastings from not having it.
Oh, oh man, Windows Defender caught it. Hold on. We can fix this. We can fix this maybe. Hold on here. Hold on, because there is this. Try running this code instead. Yes, this is exactly how a red team operation goes. You try something, you fail. You try something else, you fail. We are learning by doing today, friends.
If it worked in your first time, I would not trust you, so. That works.
Oh, come on.
Your turn code?
Oh man, Windows Defender is killing me. You know what? Can't we just disable that? All right, seriously, I'm not a Windows fan at all. I mean, me too, but at the same time, it's kind of like, man, come on. Let me.
Device security. Yeah.
Nope. Wow. Is there no just turn off? Well, that's okay. We already hacked one PC today. We don't need to hack two of them. But the goal of this was to showcase what you can do with a full automation and the fact that there are so many tools out there, especially for teams, to share how they're doing this. Now, I swear this worked on Monday, so something got updated. Yeah, pretty much, Patch Tuesday. All right, so we went through a little bit of a demo. Now, some of these screenshots are from my successful testing of this. So we found the VNC password. We logged into it, right? We already saw that. I showed you a little bit about Villain. Again, if you have physical access, you have root access. That's just the way it goes. So a little too long didn't watch anything I talked about today. Automation saves time. If you're not using it today, you better start using it tomorrow. If your teams don't do this today, be that evangelist on this and bring it to your teams. By doing it as code, you can standardize everything across your teams, across your pen testers. You can integrate this with your various frameworks. Again, as we go out into the world, as we go out into the wild to do our pen testing, and this even applies to blue teams, right? You still want to work from the same workflows, from the same playbooks, right? Store that all as code. You want this to be repeatable, predictable work. And of course, by doing this, it leads to more hacking, which is really all we care about. With all that said, I'm happy to take any other questions, except from Esquire. No.
Where did transforming scripts to create stuff in the cloud and script one and kind of flip it into that? So we're going to have local
Not specifically. So the question is around like using something like Terraform, but switching it from cloud focus to local focus. That's where Packer comes in, to be honest. So Packer is what does all the same type of automations and provisioning as Terraform, but it does it to your local system or even a remote system. The difference, though, is Packer is meant to create a VM image for deployments. Terraform is used on the cloud side to actually deploy. So you're deploying those assets and those configurations to the cloud and making them, whatever dev, test, prod you're doing. It's the same concept. It's just infrastructure as code is the concept. Terraform is just a different tool to affect a different outcome. Packer is just the local one that I like to use. Anything else? Oh, well, I got a hand back there.
What is your favorite type of app that you pen testing on? Do you kind of like favorite desktop apps or web apps, or just kind of just curious
If I heard that correctly, what's my favorite type of app to do a pen test against? Anything. I don't like mobile apps because mobile apps are weird. Like when you're developing a mobile app for, Android, iOS, because those are the only two mobile apps platforms. You can get the application package files for each of those, and you can run those through automated scanners. But to do true pen testing on those, like you really have to have a good setup. Like you have to have test devices that are on a, controlled wireless network with packet sniffing on it. Like there's a lot of infrastructure to do true mobile app pen testing that I don't keep online. My favorite pen testing is going to be web applications and anything local on someone's network. So when I say local on a network, that includes all the vendor web apps that come with everything you install. My favorites, though, are facility systems. Think card access. Those are always admin. Switches. Love me some switches. A few weeks ago, new client. They design and build living communities. Think retirement communities, except for like younger generations, purposely built for that. I managed to find not one, but about 10 different devices with Telnet turned on. No password, dropped you right to a BusyBox as root. Root on a BusyBox Linux system with access to its own local networks that I didn't know about, plus the internet, plus my networks. Yeah, that was a fun presentation talking about dropping web shells there. And then old OSs, really, there's too many enterprises that just have old systems that they just can't update and they can't remove because, business critical applications still run there. Good question.
Will you put out your scripts?
I will give you guys the link here once we're done. I'll post it. Yeah. That's it. I hope this was somewhat educational, hopefully a little informational, and hopefully a little bit of fun, Esquire.
You said you can ask me a question. So, please go back to where you were trying to turn off the fender, and I try not to phrase this as a question. Let's continue to work on turning off the fender.
We can. I'm now theme, so if we want to keep working on that, we can. Let's just. Yeah.
Dismiss under virus and threat protection, dismiss. And then see if you can click on that box and disable
Real-time scan?
real-time scan.
This is why you don't let your users have administrative accounts to turn off.
Yeah.
That's very
There
true.
we go.
All right, let's just.
I don't like.
I use this in our Well, there you go.
Backdoor session established. Look at that. All right. All right, let's hit the help there. Let's go ahead and so we're gonna shell it to 4.3. Who am I? I'm Packer Win 10 user. Boom. Now, if I had a compatriot over here on the same network, I could toss that shell over to him and or her, and he or she can keep on working, or they can keep on working. Boom. Thank you so much for the assist. It does take, you know what? It does take a village to hack. We are all a village of hackers. Hacking is not a crime. You should be proud of that.
Depends how you use it.
Well, as I like to tell people, I love what I do. I get paid to break the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act every single day, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And with that, Finn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And are there no other questions or anything that anybody wants to bring up?
I'm happy to talk more.
Say you don't have access to unlock computers, what can you do?
What's that?
Say that the machine is locked, you can't open it.
Well, if the machine is locked, I mean, that's locked, unless you've got enough time to, shut down, pull the hard drive, and it's not BitLocker and all that. One thing about with that technique is it's a technique of opportunity, right? You have to be present and have the opportunity to plug in a rubber ducky or similar to run your code, or to already have a backdoor into the environment, right? So when I approach my pen testing, we don't have credentials. We don't have any information. It's completely black box. So I spend my first half of the day, enumerating networks, identifying services, doing basic vulnerability scans to identify what's out there, what might be vulnerable. And then based on what I find, I might try to take advantage of vulnerabilities out there to get local access to a workstation, to a server, and then tangent from there and pivot from there. Now, the other part of what I do, and Esquire knows this, a few other people know this, but I'm an auditor. So not only am I doing pen testing as part of my engagements, but I'm also there to audit your environment. So, by the middle of the day, I'm given domain administrator credentials. I'm given Azure Global Admin credentials. I'm given, credentials to various cloud services, because the point of my engagement is not just to scan you for vulnerabilities, but also audit what you're currently doing, what your policies are, what your configuration is, to give you the full picture. Because a lot of the organizations I work with, they don't have staff that look at that full time. They might have an MSP that manages it for them, and they sure as heck don't look at that on a regular basis. Or they have one in-house IT person that is putting out fires all day, every day. They don't have time to audit their environment or to review their environment. So that's what I do for them, is I give them the information. So most of my job isn't exactly the, wearing a hoodie and sitting in the coffee shop, I'm actually invited on site to do this job. Yeah. But that's a great question about what if it's locked. If it's locked, try phishing the user when they get back, interrupt them when they get back, have them go get you a coffee, social engineer, yeah.
So I'm also curious, do you also automate the reports you have to generate?
Oh yeah, yeah. Who here has ever run Tenable Nessus? Yeah. Who here has read an entire Tenable Nessus report and then manually pulled out all the highs and criticals for every IP address and organized them? Python, man, Python. Python can do that. I can't. Yeah, I automated all my stuff. If I do it more than I have a script that takes all my Nessus files, all my Nmap files, and some additional files, searches to make sure they're in the appropriate location, if they are, adds into the appropriate list, and then builds out an entire HTML page for my deliverable. That's IP, so I can't show you that script again. I have all that stuff scripted. And I keep looking for more ways to script it. I've got so many parts of my deliverable that I keep doing by hand that I'm getting tired of it. One of my goals is to either invest in an application that maintains my customer, all my scans, and everything like that, and then spits out my deliverable, or I need to write my own program for that. And I'm tempted to. That's a great question.
There's a question that came in from online.
Yeah.
They asked for you to like talk about printers and, like, printers, 0 days, and like similar things. I think they're looking for like devices that don't have a Windows 10 on them. Like, do you run across that a whole lot? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, all the environments I scan. So the questions about what about non-Windows 10 devices, talking about printers and other infrastructure. So I've already talked about the one where I found this random Linux busy box, about 10 of those on the network. I find those all the time. 2 days ago at a customer, I found an HP Jet Direct, no password, open telnet that you could log into, take advantage of. Whether or not there's an actual vulnerability or a way to drop a shell on that or to get you anything beyond that, that's beyond this talk, but that's something that you can research as you're going through the process. So if you're looking at this from like an actual, I'm being hired to pen test an organization, and they're paying me a lot of money and giving me a leeway of time. That's where your recon comes in. Your recon should be, well, what kind of devices do they use? What vendors do they use? When do employees arrive? When do they leave? When do they go for coffee? When do they take their smoke break? Stuff like that. Then when you get inside the organization, your first round of recon inside is going to be your Nmap scans and other low impact scans to identify those devices that are old and might be vulnerable to something. The services that are vulnerable. I found a whole bunch of Servu FTP vulnerabilities the other day. When was the last time you heard about Servu FTP being used in a production environment somewhere? I haven't heard about that one since my other days. But that's where your initial recon comes in for the inside to figure out, okay, what is there that I could take advantage of? That's a good question, though.
So there's another question. We are working in a larger red team. What collaboration tools do you use to keep notes and vulnerabilities together nice and neat? Like, do you have something you use to keep a playbook going?
That's a really great question. The question is, if you're working on a larger team, how do you keep your information kind of centralized for your teammates so everyone's on the same page? That's a really great question. So I'm going to caveat this a little bit. I don't work on a large team, unfortunately. I work on a team of 2. And I'll caveat more that my partner is near retirement. And so he doesn't really do the newfound technology the way I do. So I'll tell you what I have set up that is shareable with other team members. So first and foremost, we have Slack, right? Slack is real easy for teams to use. You can share documents. You can chat real time. You can even do video chatting. It works really great. We have OneDrive, so we're standardized on OneDrive. OneDrive, if all of your files are the X version, so DocX, XLSX, etc., numerous people can be on that same file working in real time. So I create a subnet list for all my engagements. Every subnet I encounter, I split everything up into /24s, and on that document, for example, I've got a column of subnets, I've got a column of Nmap. Is Nmap running? Where is it running? Who's running it? I've got Nessus. Who's running it? Where is it running at? Is it done? Who has ownership of it? I've got a notes column so that we can keep notes for each other. What did we find that was interesting on that subnet? I'm also using Obsidian to take daily notes, for example, and those can be stored in Git. Those can be stored in OneDrive. Anybody can take a look at those. But tried and true is always going to be text files. Text files on a share someplace.
All right. And there was a question if there's going to be some sort of video on demand stream of this. And there is. It's been streamed on through LinkedIn and through the MySec YouTube channel. So if there's anything you guys missed or anybody who's watching, anything that was missed, you can always go back to the MySec YouTube channel and rewatch this.
Well, once again, thank you everybody for listening to me jabber for about an hour, and yeah, let's socialize. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.